60 Minutes Rewind.
The American policeman in 1968 is out of joint with his time. He is the target for charges of brutality, mistreatment of minorities. He's regarded with fear by some, contempt by others. In turn, he complains of a public disrespect for law and order, says that he's hamstrung in the performance of his duty by technicalities in the law. There can be little doubt that he is undertrained, underpaid for the job with which we've charged him. The top cop in the United States is Attorney General Ramsey Clark. He, too, has been damned by some, indeed by some law enforcement officers, as soft on crime, soft on law and order. He offered no concession to those who damn him when he said last week, "Of all violence, police violence in excess of authority is the most dangerous. For who will protect the public when the police violate the law?" I asked Ramsey Clark about the American policeman.
The policeman today is a man who is put upon from every standpoint. He's not paid well, he's not trained well, he finds a little opportunity to improve himself. He lives a life that causes very considerable risk to his safety. His relationships with the community that he there serves have become so strained in so many parts of our cities that he is living, working in a hostile environment.
Well, he's living in a hostile environment because he is the white community, or the outside community's, let's say, point of contact with that community. He's out at the cutting edge.
The people who live there will tell you that when the sun goes down, there ain't nobody here but us and the cops.
The people are using the policemen as scapegoats because there's nobody else.
They feel that we're in there like an occupation force.
We have to control the junkies, the prostitutes, the car breakers, the robbers, the assaulters, and yet at the same time we have to protect those people that also live in the same area. It can be hairy sometimes.
You hear so much about police brutality. I suppose it's a hard subject, again, for a top cop to talk about. How much of it is there? How much of the complaining about that is valid?
I think the frequency of the cry police brutality tends to obscure the real issues. And the real issues are professionalization of police, adequate pay for police. And as we do these things, then the use of excessive force and the attraction to the police department of people who are more likely than others to use excessive force will diminish. If a third of your police department didn't finish junior high school, yet they can arrest you or me or a PhD, then you have to wonder how much we really care about public safety and individual liberty.
A lot of times you go out here and you get a fight and you can't stand there and say, well, I can't use too much force on him because he'll charge brutality, and you have to use just as much force as he uses on you.
A young man coming out on the job today, he has a second thought, then he's liable to be dead.
All through my years, I have known men that have gone into police work, and unfortunately, I have known men who have left police work because they found first that they were unsupported within their departments frequently. They found that their families were suffering privations because of inadequate pay. They found that they had no respect in the communities that they worked.
All you need is some citizen to make a complaint against you. And maybe it's not a good complaint, but if he's got enough witnesses to say it's a good complaint, you can be out of a job.
We represent authority, and some people in the American society, I guess, is just opposed to authority.
How does the Negro community look upon a Negro policeman?
And a good illustration is a story that the police have told me on several occasions, where so many of their fine young officers recruited from Negro areas never want the people among whom they live, their neighbors, to know that they're in police work. They'll wear civilian regular clothes to the police station, and they'll change in a locker down there, and they'll try to stay out of the area they live in police work, not because they're in undercover police work at all. They're regular line duty men, but they're embarrassed about it. They're a little bit ashamed of it.
Being a black officer, you know more, you know the people better, and you know maybe how to get along with them in a better respect than you would if you were, I guess, if you were a white officer. But being in a uniform, you the people automatically resent the uniform.
I think that the community, and I'm talking about the Negro community now, has just as much suspicion of the Negro officer as they do of the white officer. They sort of feel that he has sort of gotten out of the muck and has sort of gotten into the mainstream of society, and consequently he has joined the society that sort of controls their own destiny.
But suppose you were the kid in the ghetto, and suppose from the time you were first sensitive enough to recognize things, you could see the policeman on the beat when numbers tickets were being sold. And you could see him standing looking the other way when narcotics peddlers were selling dope, and he must have known about it. It's a little hard under those circumstances to have respect.
I seen a lot of cops do a lot of things that's dishonest, you know, like I seen them in after-hour joints, you know. I see them, book is paying them off, you know. Certain joints that they are certain dudes that's been out here all their life peddling drugs. But yet when a dude come on the street, maybe just start peddling drugs, you know. Now you wonder how the ones that been peddling drugs all their life stay out in the street, and how the ones that just come out peddling drugs, how they get popped so fast, see?
Ever since I was 9 all the way up to now, they've been harassing me. You see what I mean? So I don't have no respect for no police. I don't dig it.
If the police would try to understand the people, the way the people feel, you know, and the people would, in turn, they already know what the police is for. See, but now it's up to the police to establish a relationship, not the people. See?
We associate the problem with the ghetto because it's most intense there. The daily contact between police and the ghetto dweller is so much more frequent and so much more frictive than in other parts of the city that we fail to remember that the total bundle of attitudes between the entire community and the police are troublesome elsewhere. And we saw very clearly in Chicago the antagonisms that exist and that come forth so readily between police and a wide spectrum of generally young people. They reflect the many divisions that we have in this country, divisions between the rich and the poor, and the young and the old, and between the educated and the uneducated.
Well, I think the police are generally insecure about their own position in society, and they feel that the young, especially the educated young, are wise and smart alecks.
They should have broke their heads. What is this generation coming to? A bunch of madmen and commies and everything else?
One of the reasons the police are uptight is because youth, for a change, are beginning to challenge their authority. It used to be that whatever a policeman said was the law.
I remember when I was a boy, 14 years old, just watching a fire. I had my head split by not moving away as fast enough as a cop told me to. And I wind up with about 14 stitches in the head. These guys do waste and they get away with it. And I don't think that is right.
When I was young, I got a shot in the candle at the police. I went home and my old man beat the hell out of me because I got hit by a cop.
The kids, these are white middle-class kids. They have everything that the cops probably want in life in terms of materialism. And they just don't, I don't think they comprehend what these people are fighting for. To me, the middle-class kids have reached a different plateau. They're going on to a better society, which is manifested in humanism. They've reached the point where materialism is no longer important to them. I don't think police realize this. They're on a different plateau in society, I think. These are the things they're striving for, a home in the suburbs, things which these kids have had already and passed on.
What is the cop on the beat's view of society?
It can tend to be pretty bleak. You know, a very large part of law enforcement work goes into family disputes. Murder, that's the most serious crime in most of our personal judgments. A third of them are within families. 75% are among people who know each other well. And the police are going into these situations all the time, and they see this. It can give you an awfully pessimistic estimate of mankind. If you're spending 50 hours a week out on the streets, having to make arrests of young toughs, bringing people into the station house who've just been cut up with a knife or shot with a pistol, if everything you see tends to be violent and tends to be aggressive, and the people around you, you're always worried that something's going to hit you in the back or in the back of the head, then that wears you pretty thin in time. And you have to wonder what it is about our society that we care so little, and why it is that courts seem to turn some of these people loose that you just arrested and has been a risk to you personally.
You caught him, and you charged him, and then you feel like you've done it for nothing, that he's back out there in the street again.
There's never been a time in our history when the police are as important to the American people as they are today. These next several years will determine whether we have time to rebuild our cities and rebuild ourselves, to do the immense construction job that this country has to do. And the policeman is the chief key to the solution as to whether we will have this time. If he can maintain balance, if he can enforce the laws fairly without provocation, if he can effectively maintain social stability in the areas that he polices without excessiveness, without either overacting or underacting, then we will have this time. And if he fails, it is possible to see a division in this country caused by an escalation of riots and bloodshed that would create a division that would take generations to heal.